Episode 13.
What movements or exercises do you think should be removed from testing or competitions for fitness?
What movements and what kind of competitions are we talking about? Let's clarify it for people that are going to listen.
Yeah, not your competition.
What, so pick what competitions, like what level of individuals.
Yeah, let's say opens, regionals.
So the open, regionals, and games.
Yeah.
That stream of competitions.
Mm-hmm.
So which movements do I think should be removed?
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I'm not thinking in any particular order of which one is the worst. Yeah, I would say just going through this year, I'd say one that shouldn't be included is any form of rebounding box jumping. I don't see any point in that. I don't know what you're getting out of it with regards to testing, right? I don't know what it's telling you about the person, which is why you should be putting the movements in there. That's why they should be included. And depending on the design of the event is what is going to dictate what the modality is going to be testing specifically. But with box jumps, and specifically rebounding box jumps, I have no idea what the purpose is. I don't know. And I can see why it's in there because they're obviously difficult and they can really, you create a lot of work while you're doing it. And you end up breathing quite hard, right? So it provides quite a high cardiorespiratory stimulus, but to me it has such a negative, a potentially negative issue with the Achilles tendon stuff, which we saw this year, unfortunately, right, with Julie Fouché. It was too bad with her, and then there's another girl in the Canada East region. Her name is, why can't I think of her name right now? Anyway, she was a Games hopeful in the Canada East region. She tore her Achilles tendon before the regionals as well. But Julie did it at the regionals, and it was on an 18-inch box jump, not even the standard 20, like a lower one. So I don't see the point in those. So we'll leave it at that. Number 2, again from this year, in the same workout, oddly enough, was the sumo deadlift high pull. Again, I have no idea why that movement's still used. And for 2 reasons. One, the judging of it is gray at best. You're like, I don't know. There's no perfect standard. A power clean's pretty simple. You got to stand up with the bar, and you got to lock your legs, and the bar has to be sitting on your shoulder. It's pretty simple. The high pull, athletes were having their feet wide, feet narrow, arms way inside their knees, arms just at their knees. They were keeping their elbows below the bar. They were some of them were high, some of them seemed low. It was a very interesting movement. Obviously, lots of people have beaten that movement to death with regards to potential for injury in the shoulder. So for 2 sides, right? One is, I would say, it's difficult to judge, but on the more important side, it has I would say it has too much of an issue with the shoulder. And there's many other viable options to put in, right? And oddly enough, again, in that same workout, GH sit-ups. I don't see the point in those. I have no idea, right? I think there's lots of movements that are only performed in training and should only be performed in training, like their assistance movements. And for me, I don't generally even use GH sit-ups as an assistance movement. I don't even use that in people's training for the most part. I used to a bit more in the past, but again, more just through education and experience, just don't use it. And again, it's very localized to the abs and the quads. It's just I don't know. And again, I don't see the point of just testing hip flexion endurance. Hip flexion, basically, it's hip flexion under kind of an abdominal isometric contraction with a very little bit. And obviously you're going through a lot of flexion extension in the lower back, and for some people it's going to really hurt them, and it's not a good movement. to do a lot of reps in long term. So I don't see the value in keeping it. And to me, it's not a very good movement to use. It's very generic, and it's not a very good descriptor, but it's very basic. It's just simple. It's sit down, come up. Like, why wouldn't they use back extensions in competitions? It's very similar with regards to the range of motion you're using. The reason you don't use it is because there's no point in using it. You're not getting out of anything out of the test. And the same thing with the GH sit-up. I don't see the value in it. There's lots of other movements you could use if you're trying to test, like hip flexion endurance. But I don't even know why that hip flexion endurance is even tested. I don't know what that has to do. I don't know why that's involved in a finite amount of testing you have for fitness. Okay, next one. Let's see. I'd say it's the top three for sure, and they all came up in the same event this year. The rebound box jumps, the window, the 5 pulls, and the GH sit-ups. They're definitely the 3 most useless. 4, I don't know what I would say for number 4. One that I think is used, I think for people at the highest level it makes sense, like doing pistols and that kind of stuff. But for everyday competitions, it makes no sense to use pistols. They're generally just not going to be performed well for individuals, and a lot of them I don't see the value of them training to get better at a pistol, right? I think a lot of people are just going to be fighting their body position too much, and their genetically determined body position, where some people just have limited range on dorsiflexion, and they're just not going to be able to do that. And individuals that are older, I don't think they should be really focusing on doing pistols, because again, I don't see the longevity in that when you're 45, 50 years old, and then you want to continue to be able to walk when you're 65, 70. I don't know that pistols are a good option. There's another one I was thinking, handstand walking. Like, I think that pretty much. Walking on your hands, to me has very, I'd say the main reason I don't like it to be placed into fitness competitions is because it doesn't tell you anything. It gives you nothing. So let's just say, for example, for this year at the regionals, like the first of the event was the handstand walk, and the next event was the snatch. And I don't care about the order right now. Let's not worry about that. Let's just take, so 2 of those events were weighted the same. Okay. The thing about the handstand walk for specific to CrossFit is that the handstand walk, like if you had a pool of 1,000 people, I would like a pool of 1,000 people that were like competing. I don't think the handstand walk determines anything. And like, so let's just say you're like, hey, I'm really good at handstand walks. Okay, there is 0 predictive value with that movement, regardless of competency in the movement. So to me, if the person is amazing at the movement, cool. If you're bad, cool. I honestly don't know how good of an athlete you are in CrossFit, if you're amazing at it or if you suck at it. That's got to tell you something. But with like a snatch, if you're like, yeah, I'm really good at snatching, it's like, are you involved in CrossFit? Yeah, well, you're starting to get a much greater idea. Because you're like, hey, I can snatch 300 pounds or 140 kilo. Well, then you know for a fact that he can overhead squat it. Then you know he can thruster probably pretty damn close to it. You know he can front squat more than it, right? You'd be like, well, I'm going to guess that you can probably clean and jerk 360 to 160 kilos. And probably back squat or front squat 170, 175, back squat 200-ish, somewhere around there maybe. And that's from one movement. From the handstand walk, you get 0. So that's why I don't see the point. And it's because you don't have 100 different events to use. You have 7 in one weekend. And to make 1 out of 7 events, to pick that movement that has 0 predictive value on anything else makes no sense to me. So I'm like, I don't get it. I don't see the value of it to make that an event in itself. And I think that's 5 of them, so that's enough for right now.
Yeah, perfect.
Do you have any other ones other than that? The box jump, the sumo deadlift, pull, G sit up, pistol, kind of pistol. Like I said, depends. And then the handstand walk.
I pretty much agree with you, with everything you said.
Yeah. So like for the handstand walk, it's like why wouldn't we just have an event that's just pistols? You're like, well, it's stupid. It's like obviously it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. If you're gonna put pistols in, it makes more sense to put them in as part of an event. Same with the handstand walk. I think when the handstand walk is part of an event, part of a series of things, it makes more sense. I still don't really like it, but it makes more sense when it's like that. I don't. Again, like I said, I don't see the point in testing it on its own and making it one event on its own, unless it's going to be weighted very small.
Yeah. If you have only 7 events throughout the weekend,
and you used up 15% of your testing on handstand walk, that's not very good to me.
You could pick up different exercise, different movements with more value of prediction, other movements.
Yeah.
Instead of handstand walking.
Like, or predictions of ability, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's fun to watch, like handstand walking 10 athletes, or one next to each other, and like you see the speed and the technique and everything. Yeah, it's really great to see and to watch. But in terms of physiology or prediction of other abilities, there is not much value.
There wasn't even any single leg work this year at the regionals. There's no lunging or pistols at the regionals.
Oh, team events. They had overhead walking lunge.
Yeah, that's a great movement.
Yeah.
Which I would say is even makes more sense to use an overhead walking lunge as an event on its own than a handstand walk. And again, I'm not saying it because I'm not good at handstand walks. Because I learned how to do handstand walks, and I got decent at them. Like I could go 65 feet, which I thought was pretty good. But even when I was able to do them, like I still don't really see the point. I'm not really getting it. It's a cool skill. It's fun, but for testing, I don't think so. All right.
Great, thanks.